Greetings, greetings, family. Sister Shanice in the house. You know what time of day it is. Yes, it's Wednesday, and I am black. Absolutely delighted to be here with you this evening. And wow, 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 rise up, the entire family, because as you rise, I rise. And as I rise, you rise. So let's rise together, family, to our former greatness, because wow, we have fallen from a great height. Okay, let me just go over to my channel and find the live link so that I could be sharing that via WhatsApp in the background. I've got lined up for you today, family, and I am so excited and so looking forward to sharing with you the presentation that I've been preparing. I've spent the most part of this strong, actually. Some say weak, some say strong. Preparing this show for you. And so I'm really excited to be able to bring the show to you today and the presentation. Let's hope that I'll be able to go through without any hitches, because already it appears that it's spinning a bit my end, but certainly hope that it doesn't impact on you, your end too much, and that it is just my internet and that yours is absolutely fine. So how have you been? I hope that you've been absolutely fantastic, blacktastic, and that you're as excited as I am, to be joining me today for episode 4 of our series. And wow, what a powerful series it has been indeed. And thanks to those of you who've been in touch and have been encouraging me and have been saying that you've been enjoying this new series. And so, I'm just going to continue with it for a little while, because there is just so much great information out there. And I've just been uncovering it. It's as if once you start looking, the ancestors just start bringing the knowledge and the information to your attention. And as they bring it to my attention, I'll be bringing it to your attention as well. So just going to get some of the notices out so that we can get the show on the road. And as you come through the house, hit me up in the chat. Make sure that you're logged in so that you can communicate via the chat, okay? Because in today's session, there is a lot that we're going to be going through. And as always, I've probably prepared too much. I'm probably going to have to spread it over a couple of shows again. But, when you consider, the breadth and the depth of our history, it's not surprising that, I can't squash it all into 1 or 2 shows. So thank you for those of you who are already in the house. Teresa's in the house. Rise up, rise up. Hotep sis, glad to have you in the house. Audrey's in the house as well. Rise up, rise up. Delighted to have you in the house. Wow, it's going to be an amazing show today. So just sharing the link and I'm going to be right with you. So what has your strong been like? How have you been? I certainly hope that it's been a great one. On my series, I've been debunking and demystifying our ancient history, because, what they've tended to do is to kind of look at our history in individual, like, little silos. And then when you look at our history in silos, then you don't really get, the full, picture of our history and of our greatness. But when you start looking at our history across the globe, as I have been doing, and as we are doing as part of this series, you are going to be, floored as I am with the greatness, with information about the greatness of our history. And so this is a history of us as Africans, not just in Africa, because, a lot of us are very aware of our great accomplishments on the continent. But as Asians and as the original people of the globe, as I outlined in episode 1, we were everywhere and we left. huge megalithic monuments for our future, so that we as the future would know how great we really are. But the reality is that a lot of these monuments have been hidden from us, and a lot of them hidden in plain sight. But when you get to realize that the world's greatest ancient monuments were built by our ancestors, wow, 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 it just floors you at our greatness. And so we're going to be pulling the pieces together because, our history has been fragmented. A lot of our history has been hidden. A lot of it has been erased. But when you dig and dig and dig, family, you start to find it. And I'm doing the digging, and I'm just excited about sharing it with you. So as I share the link, please also assist me by sharing the link as well. Today, we're going to be looking at some mountains, and you'll be thinking, mountains? Why do we want to look at mountains? Oh my gosh, family. What our ancestors did with some of these mountains, we have to marvel at it. Even today, we have to marvel, at the greatness of our ancestors, and what they were able to do with the mountains, and how, oh family, the images that I'm going to be showing you today of the marvels of the greatness of our ancestors, just be as excited as I am about our former greatness, and I say former greatness, but our ancestors who populated the entire globe, who left messages for us around the world, left those messages because they just wanted to remind us at a time like this, when we're at, an all-time low, they wanted to remind us of our greatness. And through these monuments and through, the arts that they've left behind for us, family, we can get a very clear insight into the messages that they are leaving for us, the stories that they're telling us about our past, and therefore our greatness, their greatness. And if they were great and they were our ancestors, that means we were great too, because we are the descendants of those great ones. So we share that past with them, and it's like a new beginning, really, uncovering all of this history from Africa to Asia to Europe, all around the world. I want to rise up all of the ancestors that have gone before, that was doing all of the great works to bring to our remembrance and our attention information about our greatness on the continent of Africa, and I also want to rise up those great ones who've been looking beyond Africa as well, and have been highlighting and realizing, our greatness on all the continents across the globe. Okay, so certainly hope that you've been enjoying the series so far. If you have been in tune, or you have been tuning in since episode 1, we're now on episode 4, please drop me a message in the chat and let me know what your thoughts and opinions are of the sessions so far, the episodes that I've covered so far. We are on a journey, family. Episode 1, we journeyed from the continent of Africa, and we brought archaeological and genetic evidence to prove that we were the ones who migrated from Africa and populated the entire globe. And then in episode 2, I brought you archaeological evidence to prove how we actually traveled from Africa and populated the entire globe. And we were basically masters of the seas. The seas and the oceans were our highways. And I brought you archaeological evidence to prove that to be the case as well in episode 2. In episode 3, we started looking at these amazing sacred monuments around the globe, and we're going to be continuing with that today. And I've got some amazing images, and and some great stories from our history to share with you, family. I don't even know how far I'm going to get with it, but with all of this information that I have for you. But be rest assured, I'm not going to rush it and tear it up, because, you know, our ancestors has just been revealing so much to me. You know, if I need to spread it over 2 sessions, please do bear with me as I do so, because, you know, it's wonderful, wonderful to be able to share our history with you. And, you know, to those of you who've got a copy of my book already, thank you so, so much. My latest book, Hidden in the Shadows of Ancient Britain, an erased African history restored. It goes into our hidden history. I return to us, family, our Stone Age history. I reveal to us, you know, the travels that we did, particularly in Europe, is to focus mainly of our presence in Britain, because, you know, I was born and brought up in Britain, and, you know, 99% of the history that I know about Britain, that I uncovered in my research about our ancient presence there, wasn't taught to me at all in either the schools, colleges, or universities that I went to. And I thought, well, you know, if I didn't know any of this, the likelihood is that the majority of our people don't know any of this either, because it has been hidden from us. And, you know, the footprints of our ancestors is all over Britain, if you know what to look for. And you might want to check out one of my other books as well, The Remarkable Accomplishments of Ancient African Civilization, that handbook that will just give you so much information and insight into some of our inventions, our creations, our innovations as Africans. And so no one can turn around and say to us as Africans that we've never achieved or never accomplished anything, okay? Because you'll have so much information in that one book about what we have achieved and what we have accomplished as Africans. And you know, if you haven't already done so, you might want to get my book about King Offa, who was an Anglo-Saxon king in Britain who ruled over a county called Mercia. And, you know, he was such a powerful king. He was already ruling over most of what we know today as England, through through having such a formidable army, through marriage, through conquest, you know, through coercion. He was a powerful, powerful king. And so I found out about him, and didn't know about him before I found out. So I thought, let me write this book on him and share it with the family. And I'm pleased to say I was encouraged to do so by my mentor, none other than Dr. Clyde Winters. Rise up, Dr. Clyde, wherever you are, rising you up, up, up. Certainly hope you're well. Certainly hope all is great with you. And that, you know, you'll even be joining us on the show today. It's always such a privilege and an honor to have you join me. So look forward to you possibly joining me today. Look forward to all of you who are in the house. And remember, if you've got children and you want your children to see themselves as beautiful princes or princesses, we have real, true stories of princes and princesses, kings and queens. And the story of Queen Scotia, who Scotland was named after, is one such beautiful story. And so you might want to get a copy of my book for the children that's entitled The Brave Magical Journey of Queen Scotia, based on a true story of such a brave and courageous African princess turned queen, whose children went on to rule Ireland and then Scotland for well over 1,000 years. Okay, I mean, such was the power of the genes of her and her husband. And so the story, their story, has been captured in a children's version in that book, The Remarkable Magical Journey of Queen Scotia, and a more in-depth adult version of her story, all based on the research that I've been doing. You can find that family in my book, Hidden in the Shadows of Ancient Britain. There's a whole chapter that's dedicated to her and her little princes and their journey from Egypt to Spain to Ireland. Wow. And how they conquered Ireland from another group of Africans who were the indigenous people there. Well, yeah, they were there prior to Queen Scotia arriving, and you know, they were the Dandanans, and prior to them, you know, there were the earlier Picts that were there in Britain as well. There were so many ancient Black groups who were in Britain prior to the arrival, the recent arrival of the Europeans. The Europeans have only been in Britain, wow, a fraction of the time, you know, when you compare it to our history. But wow, 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 the time that they've been there, they have made major changes. They've totally usurped us, plagiarized our history, and now, you know, the country is beyond recognition. But you know, at least change starts with us knowing the truth, and so that's what we're going to be doing here today. We're going to be learning the truth of our history. Let me clear my camera. Sorry about that. And, you know, we're going to be learning the truth of our history. So welcome, family, as you come through the door. It's always a pleasure to have you. We got Watching the Hawks in the house, Rising Up the Family. Great to have you in the house. Yes, he says, Christianity and Islam told us to build our home in heaven, where no thieves or mold can touch. Because of this deception, we lost our path to greatness, and rely on others, and we gave out our resources. Yes, indeed. Because, you know, if you believe that narrative that our home is in heaven, why build a home here on earth? Why build anything of significance here on earth if our home is in heaven? And why try and do anything ourselves if, you know, it's just a temporal home, and what we ought to be doing is looking to be building our home in heaven, you know? And why try and save ourselves if we've been led to believe that we've got a savior up there who's going to save us and do everything for us? It just makes us lazy, does it not? So yes, Watching the Hawk, absolutely agree with you. Christianity and Islam have crippled us and, you know, has taken away our ability and has stopped us from realizing our greatness, I think. So yeah, I certainly do agree with your comment on that. Rise Up Kimani in the house. Hotep, great to have you in the house. Joy's in the house as well. Hotep, Rise Up family, great to have you in the house, beloved sis. The Sheriffess is in the house saying, big up, bless up, rise up, Dr. Shanice. Thank you so much, Sheriffess. Great to have you in the house. Certainly hope all is well with you and all. We got McKev in the house as well. Sister Karen, rise up, rise up. Great to have you in the house. I know you're tuning in from the USA, the United States of America. And she's saying 365 black. Yes, black and proud, black and beautiful, black like a diamond before it's actually varnished and turned into that beautiful sparkling jewel that we all are. Okay, I've finished posting the link and I am rearing to go. Certainly hope you are too. I can see my internet sticking a little bit. Certainly hope that it isn't interfering with your viewing your end. Please let me know if you're hearing me okay and if you're seeing me okay. And then very shortly, I'm going to be going over to presentation mode. And so I want to make sure that all is well so that you can see me in presentation mode. Sister Karen says, I can't wait to hear more Black history, hidden facts. Oh yeah, oh yes, it's coming, it's coming. Rise up. You say ash now reach. Yeah, ash now reach, ash now reach where? Which ash is this? Let me know. All right, so so much to share about our ancient world. It was our ancient world that has shaped this modern world, family, and we just don't get the credit, you know. But you know, we're going to be following the evidence over these episodes. This is what we've been doing for the last 3 episodes, and tonight's episode isn't going to be any different. We're going to be following the episodes, following the evidence that has been written by our ancestors in stone, that has been left in the artwork of our ancestors. I don't think we'll get onto the linguistics part of it today, but there's also linguistical memory as well that will help to trace the footprints of our ancestors around the world. We may well have to go into the linguistical side next strong. And, you know, as we're looking at our history from a spiritual perspective as well, we're going to be looking at some of the ancient monuments that our ancestors have left around the world. And there is just so much, and it's so beautiful. Again, I don't think we'll be covering all of what I've uncovered in today's session, but get ready, because, you know, we are rearing to go. There is just so much. Let me you know, just welcome you one more time as you prepare yourself, get your notepad ready. Looking forward to tonight's session. Please do share the link as well. Let everyone know that we are now live and I'm about to start the session, Africa's Global Spiritual Legacy. And we're looking at Africa's spiritual legacy across the globe. Through the architectural work that they've left behind, you know, and there will be those family that will try and say to us that, you know, what we're looking at is not evidence of our history, but I'm going to leave you to decide, okay? You decide, you tell me, what am I looking at? What am I looking at, okay? I'll tell you what the evidence says. I'll tell you what some of the scholars say, but I also want to know what you have to say. Okay, now are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Let me know. Let me go to the chat. Are you hearing? Are you seeing me okay? We can hear and see you. Thank you so much, Sister Sheriffess. Well, you're speaking for the whole group. So let's get Zoom up and over from the chat. So I'm going into Zoom now, but please do continue to post your messages in the chat. I will be returning to the chat throughout the presentation, throughout the show today. And it's your way of interacting with me. Let me know how I'm doing, how I'm coming across while going outside there. So, okay, so get ready, get ready. Right, let's line up to share the presentation with you. And let's go over here. Do what I need to do behind the scenes. I'll do it a couple of times because sometimes, you know, it doesn't actually work the first time. So, okay, let's do this one more time. Right, let's hope it sticks. Let's hope it sticks. Right, okay. Let me look on my phone as well so I can see how it comes out to make sure. Yeah, I think it's going to work. I think it's going to work. Oh, okay. Right, let me go to slideshow. Where are you there? Slideshow. And let's go into presenter view. And let me check it out on my phone just to make sure that you're seeing the right side of the screen. I think that's it. I think that's it. Welcome, welcome everybody. Namrata Mart, great to have you in the house. You're ready? Okay, you're ready. Absolutely awesome. I'm ready as well. We are on episode 4, family. So if you've missed the first 3 episodes, do go back over those in your own time. We're looking at evidence of our greatness across the various continents, evidence that's been hidden in plain sight. You know, quite often, you know, when we look at our history, we look at the history of us as Africans on the continent of Africa. We might search for our history on the continent of Europe or in the Americas or Asia. But, you know, quite often we don't put it all together. Well, in the show today, you know, quite a lot of it is definitely going to be pulled together, family. So in this episode, episode 4, we're going to be exploring our ancient sacred images. And we're going to be exploring those images from China, Russia, to Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, Rome, India, Mexico, and Egypt. Okay, hopefully I will be able to cover it all, but as I said to you, there was just so much to our history. I don't know how much of it we're going to be able to get through, but we're looking at the earliest religious traditions that were shaped by us as Africans. And it certainly appears to me as though we were the ones who took our religious traditions, our ancient religion traditions, across the globe. And so, you know, I want you to tell me what it looks like to you as well, okay? Because we're going to be exploring our ancient monuments and our images across Asia, the Americas, Africa, you know, Europe. I don't think we'll get through all of it today, but we're going to be looking closely at basically some statues, some icons. And I want you, family, to tell me if you see the striking similarities, yeah, across all of these monuments. We're going to be looking at the skin tone of some of these monuments, the facial features, the texture of the hairs, you know, and tell me what they look like and who they look like to you. And these are going to be monuments that our ancestors constructed, yeah? Powerful, powerful monuments that, you know, just many of them sit there so dignified and full of expressions. And these weren't just stone monuments either. And I want you to tell me if they're speaking to you. And if they are speaking to you, what are they saying to you? Yeah, at the time, these monuments that we're going to be looking at, and some of them are in the picture right there on the screen, at that time, yeah, these monuments actually represented a spiritual side of us as Africa. It was our connection to the spirit world. These monuments were held to be sacred. They were an important part of our community, an important part of the rituals that we would carry out as well. And they represented the gods of our ancestors during those times. And for them at that time, their God spoke to them, just like Allah and Jesus and Hare Krishna and all of the others, you know, speak to their followers today. And their followers believe that they can hear from their God. Back in the days of ancient times, you know, our ancestors, wherever we were, whether we were in China, Russia, Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, Rome, India, Mexico, Egypt, Europe, wherever we were in the world, in Britain, you know, we also had our sacred elements as well. And there weren't no small scale sacred elements either. They were large scale temples that they constructed out of stone. And it's fortunate for us that they did construct them out of stone and that they had the technique to be able to do so, because that is why, you know, we are able to recognize today to a large extent how great we really, really were. And so as they communicate to us their divinity, their authority, you know, through these monuments, I hope that by the end of this presentation, you're going to be looking at all of these monuments and be thinking, wow, our ancestors were phenomenal, you know. And I hope you'll be able to see the similarities and the links across the continents as well, because as I said to you, you know, the scholars who write about these early religious traditions will look at what I look at and they will say they're not African. These, just because the pigmentation is black doesn't mean it's African. Just because they got broad noses and big lips doesn't mean they're Africans. And you can't be saying that they are, they will tell us. Because if you do, you're just making assumptions, and you know, we'll just write you off as you know, loony researchers or something. So, you know, I want you to observe the patterns as well, family. I want you to get involved. I want you to be comparing the evidence as well. I want you to be, you know, developing your understanding of these monuments and explore, you know, for yourself what they're saying to you, what the images look like to you. Do they look like our ancestors, or have I got it all completely wrong? Who do you think created these monuments that we're going to be looking at in detail? And as I said, we're going to be looking at the ones that in the picture there that we have on this slide. So these are all sacred images. And what do they say about the people who created them? What do they say about, you know, what the people who created them look like? Will people be creating, you know, these monuments in at a time when it was Africans that populated the world to look like anybody other than themselves? Wow, these statues can't actually talk, but to me, they say a lot. Right, let's look at a couple of authorities before we go diving in. I want to rise up our beloved Ronoko Rashidi, gone but never forgotten. I want to rise up Chancellor Williams as well, gone but never forgotten. I want to rise him up for his great works, the destruction of Black civilization. Ronoko Rashidi highlighted that it was Chancellor Williams who wrote that the true African scholar must be on a relentless search for truth and must not tremble with fear when the truth is contrary to what we prefer to believe. That has been my motto, says Rononko Rashidi, all of my scholarly life. We cannot replace one set of fiction with another simply because it is what we prefer to believe. Absolutely not. High five. Agree with you, Brother Rononko, on that, and agree with Chancellor Williams that we've got to be relentless in our search for the truth. And when we find what we believe to be the truth, we can't tremble with fear either. And it's easy to tremble with fear because, family, let me tell you this, in this field of his research into our history, the white world has basically claimed a monopoly on interpreting our narrative. And if you go outside of what they have written or what they, you know, are strictly guarding as the truth, then they will write you off, they will smear you, they will make life extremely difficult for you even. Okay, and so that's why I need you to help share this platform, because, you know, they've already shadow banned it. All right. Hey, oh, rise up, Sister Karen. She said, my birthday's coming up soon. I will get the book for myself. I love the pictures. Oh, thank you so much. And happy Earth Day in advance. One more year, Pandem. Rise up. Everybody give Sister Karen, Miss Kev in the chat. Happy birthday, happy Earth Day greetings. Yes, so quite soon will be the anniversary of the day that you hit the earth. Wonderful, wonderful. All right, so, you know, what I think we're going to find and learn in today's presentation is that we were the original people of China, Japan, Southeast Cambodia, Vietnam, Indonesia. We are going to, I think, come away with evidence that suggests that the original people of all these regions were indeed Black, and that the civilizations in all these regions was actually established by us. In Cambodia, the Khmer Empire was a Hindu-Buddhist empire in Southeast Asia, centered around the hydraulic cities in what is now northern Cambodia. In terms of language, we can see the similarity between Khmer and Kemet. Khmer and Kemet. So we're going a bit into etymology there and linguistics, which is a really important way as well of learning our history, because there's a lot of similarity in words. As we traveled, we took a lot of our languages with us. Yes, over thousands of years, the languages evolved, but there were still many words that, you know, we still maintained from our homeland. And the word Kemet, KMT, in today's written form, Kemet, Kemit, Kemit, or Kamit, or Kamit. It could be written KH, AMIT, in all those different ways. In the ancient Egyptian language, it's translated to mean black, land of the blacks, or the black land. Kem, also Kem, Chem, is the Egyptian word for black. And today, whites claim the name Kemet derived from the color of the rich and fertile soil, which was due to the annual occurring Nile inundation. So we have the interpretation, one interpretation through linguistics and through the meaning of words that says Kemet meant black and the land of the blacks. And then we have the white Egyptologists who say, oh no, Kemet, Egypt, you know, Kemet, the original name of Egypt didn't mean black at all in terms of land of the blacks, because of course they don't want us to know it was the black land, do they? It actually means the color of the soil. What do you believe, you know? But I must say, their arguments are usually very, very powerful and very influential. And it takes our scholars, and it requires our scholars to do a huge amount of work to convince our people to the contrary of what these people are saying. Because you know, they'll have 101, they'll have 1,001 of their professors and scientists and researchers backing up their pseudo narratives. And to get through all of that, you have to do a lot of digging. And not all of our people have got the patience to do that. And not only that, because they have set themselves up to be the authority, quite often when our people come with the truth, or come with the research that we've found, it gets doubted. But let me bring you something else that also helps to prove what I'm saying. And this is some genetic evidence. It's actually linking the original people of China to Africa. Now, according to this article that was written by Robert Lee Hotz, who was the Los Angeles Times science writer back in September 1998, he wrote an article entitled Chinese Roots Lie in Africa, research says. Now, sometimes this kind of information, quite often I should say, or not even that often, now and again, this sort of information comes out. But unless you find it, unless you highlight it, it can disappear under a mountain of information. And to find it again is usually really difficult. So for this particular document, I want to rise up my brother Marmar. I believe he was the one that brought this document to my attention, another great researcher and brother within our community. And what this article says is that most of the population of modern China, 1/5 of all the people living today, owe its genetic origins to Africa. An international scientific team said today in research that undercuts any claim that modern humans may have originated independently in China. So the original population of modern, or the population today of modern China, they're saying that 1/5 of all of them owe their genetic origins to Africa. So where did the other come from? Where did the rest come from? In the search for human origins, in the political beliefs and pride of place can figure as prominently as fossil evidence. The genetic findings dramatically illustrate the intricate weave of prehistoric migrations and human evolution, the scientists said. And as you know, in episode 1, we were talking about the ancient migrations of our African ancestors. When they talk about humans, they're talking about Africans. Okay, prehistoric. That's in ancient times, even prior to documented written history. Our ancestors were migrating. And then when they talk about the human evolution, that's the evolution comes after the admixture with the other species that our ancestors met in the other continents when the ice cap melted about 1,700 years or so ago. Yeah, these people haven't been on the earth that long, but in the time that they've been there, woo, they have turned the world upside down. Anyway, published today, it says, in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, the study is the product of Chinese Human Genome Diversity Project, a consortium of 7 major research groups in the People's Republic of China and the Human Genetics Center at the University of Texas Health Science Center in Houston. It was funded by the National Natural Science Foundation in China. Detailed genetic profiles created. The group used the advanced tools of DNA analysis to create detailed genetic profiles of 28 of China's official population groups, which comprises more than 90% of the country's population, to better understand the roots of complex chronic diseases like diabetes and hypertension by exploring the genetic relationships that exist today among so many of China's ethnic groups. The team also shed light on the ancestry of people in East Asia, who, like everyone, carrying in every cell of their bodies genetic hints about their evolutionary history and the journeys of their forebearers. So this document talks about the fact that the Chinese roots lie in Africa, and this is what the genetics have uncovered. Okay, there was some admixture, and we'll hear about that admixture further down in the presentation. So bear in mind, the works of our brother Chancellor Williams, Rononko Rashidi, the etymology of the word chemic, and also, the Chinese study and the Chinese roots, it says, genetically have been found to be linked to Africa. And that's why, we are going to be looking at some monuments across Asia that some of us might think, the white world doesn't think it, but I want to know what you think. Some of us might think, actually, look African. And here, this poster says, first religious statues were black on every continent. They're making that bold claim. So what the Chinese roots research does is it actually widens, our perspective on what we're going to be looking at in our presentation, because, the genetic evidence is suggesting that the vast majority of the modern human population, including those in East Asia, ultimately trace their deep ancestry back to Africa. If you watch episode 1, you will know exactly what we're talking about. Episode 2, how it happens. Now we're finding evidence, not just genetic, but we're going to be focusing on archaeological and monumental evidence. And when you know the genetics, when you know the linguistics, when you're familiar with what's been documented and what's been said, then when you start to look at these ancient monuments that's out of place in Asia, that's out of place in places like China and Cambodia and Vietnam, you're going to realize maybe that they could be part of a collection. So instead of looking at them as like isolated individual statues in different parts of the world, what I invite you to do as part of this presentation today is to look at them as being a collection of our civilization and the journey of our ancestors from Africa to the rest of the globe, okay? So we've got the Buddhas of Bamiyan, who were the guardians of Angkor. We've got the Cham temple carvings. We've got the Ajanta paintings and the sacred imagery of Egypt. And all of this we're going to be looking at. And I'm hoping, that you see it in the way that I do, as part of, our ancestors expressing their cultures around the globe that shaped, the spiritual side of the culture of those populations in those distant lands where they laid their roots. Okay, and we're going to be looking at the artistic religious traditions of our ancestors. We're going to be reminded of how artistic they are in their traditions. We're going to be reminded of some of the spiritual symbolisms and the ways of shaping stone and how they painted, the paintings, the beautiful paintings that they did. I mean, these didn't just emerge by accident or in silo. It must have been, I think, part of, our ancestors' journey and their belief system, that they developed along their migration. And it shows also, I think, the close contact that our ancestors must have had, to be able to have developed, similar kind of statues across the Asian world, the African world, and the European world as well. So, we're going to see the journey of our ancestors. We're going to, and this journey stretches back to our earliest origins. It goes so far back. I don't believe that, the white world actually knows how far back these monuments actually stretch. They might say they're 3,000 or 5,000 years old, but I believe that they were much, much older. And, let me have your thoughts and opinions as well on how old you think these monuments are and what they are showing us. Okay. Wow. If you have a look at this Buddha monument in the center of this presentation, when I looked at the top of the Buddha's hair, I actually saw, our hairstyle, as African women. And there you've got a facial mask of a Yoruba person. And look at the top of the Yoruba's hairstyle. These are ancient hairstyles. And, this is what we call the cornrow hairstyle, and it's been wrapped up into a bun at the top. Is the Buddha not wearing a cornrow bun at the top? And all those little circles on the top of the Buddha's head, that is meant to represent, I believe, the curly hair, the coiled hair of us as of Africans as well. And we're going to see a lot of these monuments because, they were carved as guardians into cliffs, and they're all over Asia, the Americas, where in the similar way, just expressing our identity, I think, and our belief systems. And so, we've got the genetic research that is already suggesting a direct link between Africa and Asia. Are these monuments communicating to us, that there is a direct link between Africa and Asia as well? And if so, is there a deeper truth that's been hidden from us that is not being spoken about? The builders of these sacred sites as well, were they part of one extended family? Because if they weren't, how did the skills of carving these monolithic, statues into stone actually extend beyond Africa, beyond Egypt, to Asia, to the Americas, and to the rest of the world? Who were these people who were migrating and carrying all of these ideas, carrying all of these skills, carving all of these symbolisms into stone, long before a first history book was even written or recorded their journeys? tens of thousands of years, possibly hundreds of thousands of years ago, our people were migrating, they were carrying their ideas, their belief systems, their skills, and their history across continents. I mean, that's what it looks like to me. What does it look like to you? Let me jump over to the chat and see if I've got any comments here. Rise up, Sister Betty. Good to have you in the house. She says, we are everywhere on this planet. Yes, we are indeed. Jaris says, our scholars, our scientists have done the excellent job. We just have to embrace our value system and not theirs. Absolutely, Jaris. Rise up, rise up. Sister Karen says, the Orientals always have braids. And rise up, Sister Betty says, facts, Queen, facts. Yes. Okay. All right. Let's jump over to, some eyewitness accounts as well. It was back in 1945, as World War II was drawing to a close, when a US Army corporal named James Guzman reported something extraordinary while he was flying over the region of Shan in China. According to his account, as he was flying over China at quite a low level, he had some engine problems, and so he had to fly quite low. And as he was flying over China, he said what he saw was nothing less than a colossal, great white pyramid. Family, China has pyramids, has had for millenniums. They've known about it. They've hidden the fact that they've got these great pyramids. Wow. He said that the structure appeared to shine as if made from pale stone or even metal. So he was saying, well, it was just sparkling. It was like it was made out of some sort of metal or covered in some sort of metal. And he said that the top of the structure looks like a large crystal-like capstone that was reflecting light. Guzman estimated that the monument must have been over 1,000 feet tall, claiming it dwarfed even the Great Pyramid of Giza. Wow. Is this further evidence, family? You know, as Sister Betty says, that we were everywhere. Is this further evidence that our ancestors took the skills and knowledge and the expertise of pyramid building to China as well? Or did the Chinese, who were not Africans, as the white world may try and claim, somehow develop that knowledge independently? And why is China hiding the fact that they've got pyramids? Are they protecting it from the European looters who are looting our pyramids and the tombs of our ancestors in Egypt? Or are they covering up the fact that there is a link between Egypt and China that maybe they don't want the world to know about? Well, this army corporal wasn't the only person to see these pyramids and to write about it. Back in 1667, before a lot of the whitewashing, there was a Jesuit priest, Kircher. He would be the first white man to write about them. And he said that could they have anything to do with the pyramids of Kemet or Kush to the west of China? This is something that he was questioning. So there was a Jesuit priest who saw them and wrote about them and wondered if they had anything to do with the pyramids of Kemet or Kush. What do you think, family? Also, we have the scholar Geoffrey Higgins. He's a fellow, he was rather, back in 1836, the fellow of the Royal Asiatic Society of Cambridge, and an alumni. And he wrote something that scholars are probably wishing he never wrote, because they're still debating it today. In his book, Anacalypsis, Higgins argues that a Black civilization in ancient times may have held far greater global influence than later histories acknowledge. Whoa. He pointed to the views of Sir William Jones, the respected Orientalist, who believed that a powerful Black people once held dominion across parts of Asia. You hear what they're saying? Higgins also referred to earlier writers like Mr. Maurice, who connected these ancient peoples to the Kushites, suggesting that traces of their presence could be seen in some of the oldest temples scattered across Asia. So these are some of the, original scholars back in the early 17th, 18th, and 19th century, who were writing back then about what they'd seen in Asia. And we have, Mr. Maurice, who is suggesting that they could be actually connected to the Kushites. Remember, in the earlier slide, we were talking about Kemites as well. We know we've got Kushites in Asia, who the Europeans are trying to suggest. We've got nothing to do with the Kushites in Africa, of course. And we've got Higgins himself, who was arguing that a Black civilization actually existed in ancient time that had a great influence, more of an influence than the more recent historians are prepared to acknowledge. And so, if the voices from the past were already pointing to a wider ancient presence, then the monument scattered from Africa to Asia maybe stop looking so isolated. And maybe they start to look like they are connected. And it's like reading chapters from a book that, is from the same book. One shared human experience, one shared human story carved into stone. We're going to be looking at some stoneworks in a little while. But to continue, according to Higgins and his interpretation, he said that certain ancient depictions of sacred figures were described as dark in color with flat noses, full lips, and tightly curled hair. And these were taken as visual evidence of this connection. I will have to say, though, family, that today, white scholars are trying to say that this visual evidence isn't enough to suggest that the people themselves were actually, of the phenotype of those monuments. But anyway, carrying on from what Higgins was saying, in terms of the time of the Black God, which will be prior to the god called Krishna, because that's a whitewashed one, Geoffrey Higgins goes on to say that he must have been prior to or contemporaneous with the Black Empire, supposed by Sir William Jones to have flourished at Sidon. The religion of the Negro god is to be found by the ruins of his temples. Yeah? The religion of the Negro god is to be found by the ruins of his temples and other circumstances to have been spread over an immense extent of country, even to the remotest parts of Britain, and to have professed by devotees inconceivably numerous. This is what he wrote in his book, the Anacapalyptis, that, the followers of these Negro gods were so vast, it crossed continents, reached as far as parts of Britain. In Britain, he's saying, there was a time when Britain was worshipping a Black god before Krishna, when there were Black empires, the empires that Sir William Jones spoke of, that flourished in ancient times. Wow, wow, wow. Did you know that, family? That there were Black gods in ancient times that were worshipped globally right as far as Britain? Did you know? We're going to be homing in on some of these Black gods, family. So let's go, start with China, where we've got the Buddha Bodhisattva. And this is a powerful image that actually dates back to ancient China. And this is the Bodhisattva, the Bodhisattva. She is a guardian figure. And this Bodhisattva is a temple guardian statue. And you can find them across various sites in China. And they said that it dates back to about the 4th to the 8th century CE. This early Buddhist monument in China was heavily influenced, they say, by the Indian Grandharan traditions. But you can see, well, I can see, that they were heavily influenced by the early Africans who would have resided and frequented China in ancient times. And we do know that those ancient Africans had their trade routes also that went to China because there is evidence from architectural discoveries that show, trade actually happened between Africa and China, and even Britain and China as well. And we know from our early ancestors' understanding of the sea that they used as their highways, that they used the highways as trade routes, and that they themselves, sailed the Indian Ocean, which they would have called the Ethiopian Ocean at the time. And, so it's not surprising that we see some early statues in China with broad noses, full lips, braided or coiled hair, with African phenotypes. Yeah. And as I said, these modern Europeans, they will tell you, doesn't mean the people in that region look like this, because they're still trying to deny us Africans our history. But what we can definitely say about these features is they're not showing the features of a modern European. So this early Buddha that would have been worshipped as a god in China, would have been worshipped with its broad nose, big lips, coiled hair. And as I said, the ones who were the guardians of these temples would have been one like this beautiful figure that we've got here, this Buddha Bodhisattva, the Bodhisattva, who was a guardian statue. And we're going to see many more guardian statues as well. And one thing that you're going to notice is that a lot of these guardian statues will actually appear to be female. So it's like a female figure to me. Does this guardian statue look like a female figure to you? Let me know your thoughts. And I also want to know, because, as I said, the white world is saying that these phenotypes are not African. If they're not African, what are they, please, family? Let me hear what you have to say. Yes, Sister Karen, those are definitely not Caucasian noses. And Kimani saying, excellent research, Sister Shanice. Thank you so, so much. Let's continue. All right, so here's a map of the Hindu Kush region. And that's the region in light green. And we're going to be looking at some of the monuments that have been found in this region of the old Hindu Kush territory, from Afghanistan to China to Japan, all over Asia, even down in India. We're going to see some similarities, put it that way. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the similarities. And remember, this region in light green was known as Hindu Kush. Is there something in the linguistics there, that is sending a message to us? So let's step back and take a look at the bigger picture of our African human migration story. Remember, we migrated and populated the entire globe. And so we shouldn't be surprised. You shouldn't be surprised to hear me say, therefore, that we actually established ourselves also even across Asia. And if we did, should it be surprising that there are some genetic research that's actually showing us today that we do have roots in China? If you've just joined us, you've missed a slide where I was talking about some genetic evidence to prove that there are, even until today, populations in China whose genetic DNA actually goes back to Africa. Okay, so the appearance of the name Kush in different parts of the world also, starts to raise some interesting questions. One of the questions it suggests is that, the African kingdom of Kush in Nubia, which is today's Sudan, as we know, was a powerful, powerful kingdom in the Nile Valley region that had a phenomenal, an incredible civilization there from the days of antiquity that was tied to us as Africans. There's no doubt whatsoever, and there can't be any claim, even though they're going to try. Let me tell you this, family, in 100 years' time, if they continue to depopulate Sudan the way they are, and if today's so-called Arabs, the mixed race people move into Sudan, yeah, they will try and claim that history of the Nile Valley region as their own history. But at the moment, today during our lifetime, Sudan is very much blackety black. And it's very much, and we know the history of it as a powerful former Nubian empire that was called Kush. And, it was tied to us as a people. So over in Asia now, sorry, darling, my other half's distracting me. So, yeah, so it shouldn't be surprising. And I remember the Asian world is just a short skip away, a short hop away from Africa. Did Kush from Sudan extend into the Asian world? Yes, well, I think it does. The white world doesn't think it does. It did. What do you think? I'm going to bring you some evidence that's going to make you think just that. I've already brought you some genetics. We've already looked at one of the Buddhas of China. Yeah, and we're going to be looking some more at the civilization in this Hindu Kush region. We're going to be looking at some monuments that have been carved into the mountains there and across Central Asia. And we're going to see if, some of these historical theories that we as Afrocentric researchers have any legs to stand on. Is it possible that there is a shared history between China and Africa? Well, the monuments that we'll be looking at, that we've started looking at, suggest that there may well have been a link, a very powerful link between the civilizations of China and Africa. Is the genetic proof enough to tell us that there was also a direct link between Africa and China that goes back to ancient times? And is the name, is the name Hindu Kush also an indication that that region in light green was part of Kush in Africa, in Sudan, when it was part of the great Nile Valley civilization there? So is the name trying to tell us something? And, we heard Higgins give us some quotes about the movement of the Kushites, this African Asiatic people who apparently moved from Africa through to Asia. Is this another part of the puzzle that is suggesting to us that in prehistoric times there were those connections that was carried by our ancestors and their migration routes from Africa to Asia? They brought the name with them, the Kushites, themselves as Kushites, and also the name of the region as Hindu Kush. As I said, the mainstream historians and linguists are going to explain it away. They're going to say that Hindu Kush was probably the name that was given much later to the region by the Persians. You know, they want to try and write themselves into history because they don't want us to see the direct link between the kingdoms of Africa and the ancient kingdoms of Asia. But it's going to be argued here in this presentation, and it's going to be proven with the evidence that there is a link, or certainly enough evidence to suggest that we do need to recognize that, you know, it needs more research, and that it is possible that the human populations from Africa did spread outwards to the rest of the globe, including China and all over Asia. So, and this is important because, as I said, quite often when we look at our history, we look at our history as Africans as having that wonderful, glorious history in Africa, but we're looking at Africa in isolation of the rest of the globe. So very importantly, we need to recognize, you know, from doing our own research, that as Africans, we have a glorious history in all of the continents, on all of the continents of this globe. We have a glorious history in the Americas, in Asia, in Europe, yeah, as well as on the continent of Africa. Okay, I know the mainstream are going to say, why don't you just stick to your history in Africa? Why try and claim history in China and Europe and everywhere? If we had a history in those parts of the world, we had a history in those parts of the world. And we are quite right to want to know of that history and to claim it of our own if it is our own. If it's not ours, we won't touch it. And we know that in more recent times, you know, as a result of invasions and conquests, the history of those parts of the world has changed to look as though it does today. But in the past, we had a glorious history in those regions that our ancestors migrated to. And we want to know of those histories, and we want to see any evidence that there may be, you know, of that history. We want to know, you know, the identity of those ancestors of ours that travel to those regions. And if they've left messages there for us, we want to know of those. We want to hear from them, and we want to see what they left behind. And so, you know, if there's a direct link that can be made so that, you know, we can share in the knowledge of that historical connection to see, you know, the truth of, you know, what our ancestors did. We want to see it. We want to see it. But so very importantly, family, I think the message in this presentation is going forward. We must not, or we must stop looking at our history in silos and as isolated incidences, which is how they portray our history. We have to see our history as one beautiful, big journey from Africa to the rest of the world. And we carried our skills, our expertise, our knowledge with us, and we built wherever we went. We brought our civilization with us wherever we went. We used the seas as the highways, and we traveled the world. Okay, and behind we left evidence in the names of some of the places that we've just looked at. We've left the evidence in the DNA of some of even the population that exists today, and we've left the evidence in some of the monuments and the artifacts that we've left behind. So let's continue some more to look at the region of China. And of course, you know, we've got as I said, the Hindu Kush civilization and the Indus Valley civilization as well. And again, more Kush connections. So let's do a little bit of the comparison. Let's have a look at the Indus Valley priest kings. These are very ancient monuments. You know, what is this look telling us and saying to us? Now, we already know that there's a common origin theory There's evidence that our ancestors traveled from Africa to to Asia, and we can see in the name as well that there are some similarities there, and we've got Kush in Africa. Some spell it with a K, some spell it with a C. And the question's out there. Did the Kush originate from a common group of people who migrated between Africa, Nubia, Sudan, Ethiopia, and the Indus Valley, Mesopotamia? And is it us who left the evidence of our origins in both those regions? We touched on the linguistics and the ethnic links. The name Hindu Kush. It's believed by some to be connected to the same root. It's argued by some as well that Hindu and black Hindu and Kush means black or burnt face, similar to the interpretations of Kush in Africa. So could the Hindu Kush in China, in Asia, actually be the same interpretation as the Kush in Africa, which means burnt face, black or burnt face? As we know, there are many Afrocentric researchers who believe that to be the case, and that the Indus Kush civilization was indeed established and inhabited long before the first white European as we know them today, migrated to that region. And so the African kingdom of Kush, located in today's modern Sudan, as we know, was a powerful African civilization that goes back to around 1070 BCE. That's over 3,000 years ago. And that civilization, lasted for well over 1,000 years. And that's centered around Kerma, Napata and Meroe. Napata and Meroe. And so, there are some differences and there are many similarities as well. So while the African kingdom of Kush is historically documented, long-lasting civilizations with distinct cultural practices like the worship of Amun and the rule of the Candaces, the link to the Hindu Kush mountain is often discussed in the context of ancient migration and ethnic history, rather than direct political or trade ties between the two areas. And so the relationship is primarily found in the study of ancient prehistoric migrations and shared nomenclature, suggesting that the Kush name may have been associated with both, though they evolved into distinct geographical and cultural entities over time. However, in light of the compelling linguistic evidence, and we're going to be developing that more over the episodes as well, and with the genetic evidence, and you're going to see for yourself the monuments to come as well. It all points to deeper ties that I think can't be ignored, although the mainstream may want to ignore it. Let's look a bit more at the Indus Kush civilization and hear what Kwaku Ofori wrote on his post about the presence of Black people in ancient and modern India. He said, the face of India changed around 2000 BCE, when nomadic people, Indo-Europeans or Aryans, as they try to call themselves, traveled to the Indus Valley and other fertile locations in southern India. And so I think we really need to just pause here for a moment, family, and absorb what this is telling us, and think about what lessons can be learned from this and what comes to mind. So we have a situation where, an entire region in the ancient world was populated by Africans, by Black people. So the ancient India was a Black world. But then the face of India changed. Around 2,000 years ago, it started to change. Why? Because a nomadic people, Indo-Europeans or Aryans, traveled to the Indus Valley and other fertile locations in southern India. And what do you think happened? They settled there. And when they grew in numbers, what happened? They would have invaded. Anyway, prior to the invasion, blacks in India built rich and advanced civilizations. So, we're learning here that prior to our invasion, we were building advanced civilizations. But these nomadic people that came and settled among us, as we can see, invaded and have taken control of the entire region. Author Wayne Chandler recanted his amazing discoveries about blacks in Asian India in his book, African Presence in Early Asia. The remarkable cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro are only two of the many cities built by black people. These cities cover large regions of northern India and modern-day Pakistan. Wow. So here, family, thank you, Brother Kwaku, for that, where he wrote about the Indus Kush civilization. He's reminding us of the presence of us as Africans in ancient and modern India. And he's also making us aware that, the face of India changed. It started to change around 2000 BCE because groups of nomadic people started coming in. Is that what's happening in Africa at the moment? Isn't that what happened across the rest of the world? These nomadic people that came out the caves, when the ice cap melted and started traveling with our people, on our boats back to our homelands, and then started settling there and started interbreeding with the people, and then started taking over. And we can see a period of 4,000 years. Look where we are now in that region. You wouldn't even know that there's still a massive black population in India, the extent to which they are downtrodden and oppressed. And they were the rulers and the gods in ancient times. Wow. Rise up, Sister Afrijamo. Good to see that you're in the house watching from Ghana. The history is fantastic, she's saying. Thank you so, so much. We got the Hebrew Ishmaelites in the house as well, saying, thank you, Most High, that the remnants of Africa, Al-Kabulan, that are scattered worldwide, that the motherland is the origin of mankind. Yes, indeed. May the ancestors RIP in this presentation will be a blessing. Rise up. And yes, indeed, may our great ancestors rest in eternal peace, but may their spirit rise in power, rise in us, and stir our spirit to uncover their greatness. Rise up. Sister Kara says, Sudan, please stay blackety black. Indeed, but they are empty in Sudan right now. What is going on in Sudan? Those who've been sticking with this channel will know that we have run a series of shows and presentations. I've had a number of guests who have come and talked about what's going on in Sudan. It is painful. The genocide, the murder, the killing, it's on the scale of what's happening now in Palestine. Only it's just not getting the same amount of coverage. And it's intentional because it's part of the bigger Arab expansionism plan. And do you think they're going to stop at Sudan when they've already got most of North Africa and they're pushing now into, that further into the Sahel region? You think they're going to stop there? They've already converted most of their people to their religion. And so most of our people already bow down to the Arabs. It's not going to take much if you're bowing down with your eyes closed for the people to then walk in and walk all over you. And then before you know it, we're in a situation like India, like Asia, like China, where we were the original people and where our descendants are going to be talking about Africa where we were the indigenous people, just like we're talking about Egypt and Morocco and Tunisia and all those parts where we were, you know, the original indigenous people that built the civilizations there. Wow, wow, wow. Woof. How many of you recognize and remember this image, family? These images are part of the Hindu Kush region as well, and back in the days was historically significant as well. And you know, these were significant Buddha centers, and these sites, such as the Bamiyan Buddhas, is a region that is now Islamized. And some of you may remember those scenes of the Taliban with their machine guns just blowing up these monuments. Wow. Anyway, the monuments that we're looking at right now was part of the Hindu Kush mountain region that was part of a major crossroads in the ancient civilized world, and was also at the time played a major part in the ancient civilizations' belief system. So long before modern borders and conflicts, this landscape where these monuments are was part of a thriving center of Buddhism, learning, and sacred art. And one of its most powerful symbols are these monuments that you're looking at. And they are the Bamiyan Valley, which is in Afghanistan. And wow, these mountains stand at around 2,500 meters above sea level. And in this image on my left, right here, there's actually a person standing there. That is the figure of a human being standing in front of this monument, which gives you an idea of the size and the scale of it. Wow, this human being is like the size of a matchstick compared to the size of these Buddha sites that our ancestors carved into the mountains. Wow. So these statues were carved into the mountains of the sandstone cliffs. And archaeologists think that our ancestors probably did that around the 6th century CE. And these Buddha's statues actually tower about 55 meters, and the other one 38 meters tall. Wow. But of course, they weren't just sculptures back in the days. They were monumental spiritual landmarks. They would have been visible for miles, marking the valley as the place of devotion. So you can imagine if there was a pilgrimage that was making its way to today's Afghanistan to come to, you know, these ancient Buddhas for the cultural exchange or to worship, because it was part also, it was along the ancient Silk Road. And so you can just imagine the pilgrimage and all the people coming, you know, to pay homage and to do their ceremonies that they would have done at the time. You know, history, you know, hasn't survived for us, you know, what those ceremonies would have looked like or what it comprised of. But we can see from the pilgrimages that happen today, to give us an idea of what these pilgrimages are likely to have been like. And you know, you can see the destruction that happened. I mean, the whole world looked on. I remember seeing it happening. It was the Taliban, and they turned their guns on those monuments. And I was thinking, look at that, more of our history being destroyed. But even before the Taliban turned their guns on those monuments, there had been destruction of those statues prior to that. You can see that their faces have been completely damaged. You can't even see the facial features anymore on those statues. Why were those faces so badly destroyed? Why were they, so deliberately, in my opinion, defaced? And, that defacing would have happened between the 17th and the 19th century. And those were the centuries of our enslavement. Those were the centuries when our history was being rewritten, completely rewritten. These are the centuries when a lot of our books, a lot of our scrolls and our temples and our monuments were being destroyed. So even before the Taliban, back in 2001, turned their guns on those monuments and tried to destroy them, which was part of their systematic destruction of our statues across the country that they have invaded and now claim, and at the time they were declaring that no such images should remain or be honored or respected on the land that they have now invaded and taken over. And so, in that moment of my lifetime, I actually saw on the Live Vision, while the Taliban, what the Taliban were doing to destroy those stone monuments that have actually stood there for thousands, probably thousands and thousands of years. So here, we are probably looking at the final chapters of our story, of our history, that our ancestors carved into those cliffs, about 1,500 years ago, 2,000, 3,000 years ago. We don't even really know how many years ago. And it's such a tragedy if we allow all this history to disappear without us documenting it. So I certainly hope that this presentation will be part of the documentation of our history. And, in time, I certainly will be writing it up, and I hope others will be inspired to do more research and to write it up as well, so that our books, may find their way to our future descendants, so that, before it's completely wiped off, we won't be guessing whether Hindu Kush was part of the Kush civilization of Africa. But, by then they will have the real evidence before these monuments are completely lost to memory. We've lost the identity because the facial features have been completely, destroyed. But, there are some patterns that we're going to observe as we go through today's presentation. They tried to blast our history from the mountains, family. Why would they do that? Why would they want to try and blast these mountains blast these statues from out of the mountains? What is it that they want to hide? Why is it they want this history to disappear? What do you think the answer is, family? Drop your comments in the chat. Let me hear what you have to say about this. Rise up, Sister Sharifes. Great that you're liaising the chat, Sister Afrijamo. We've got Namratama in the house as well. You're reminding me of the great Sheikh Anta Diop. What? That is an awesome, awesome, awesome compliment. I bow to Sheikh Anta Diop. Imagine. Hebrew is like, thank you, Sister Shanice, for the shout out. Hey, you're welcome. Big up yourself, beloved. And we've got the Hebrew Israelites who were active in the house and saying the ancestors were even in South America, where they left those large block of heads made of stone. Yes, indeed. I've got them. Rise up for that. Okay, drop your comments in the chat. So why were the Taliban turning their guns on those monuments? Did you see the live broadcast of that while it was happening back in about 2000? I think it was 2011 when it happened. I've got it in my notes somewhere. When did that disrupt? 2001. Wow. It's 20 years ago. 24 years ago. Wow. Anyway, moving over from the Indus Valley to India. Now we're going to cross over and we're going to look in the region of our dancing lady on the Lakshmana temple, Khajuraho in India. So we've got on the left the dancing girl statues from the Indus Valley. The Indus Valley. Look at the facial features of those ancient artifacts of the dancing girl statues from the Indus Valley. And I just saw the similarities between the dancing girls of the Indus Valley and the Lakshmana temple, Khajuraho in India. Look at that monument there as well. Looks like she's taking something out of her foot, but there's some graceful similarity there. So we're crossing over to India now, family. We've just left. We've passed through China, passed through the Indus Valley, Indus Kush, and then we passed through Afghanistan, and now we're going over to India. So in this slide, we travel to India, where we have the Ajanta Indian cave paintings. What do they remind you of, family? As we can see in these cave paintings, the women are actually adorning themselves. Now, these Ajanta caves are actually located in a district in India called Maharashtra, the Maharashtra region in India. And it's situated near the village of Ajanta. And there are about 30 plus rock-cut Buddhist cave mountains in the Sahyadri Hills, carved into a horseshoe-shaped gorge along the Waghora River. Wow, wow, wow. You can see the map there, family, of where these caves are. And they said it's by the river, kind of a horseshoe kind of shape in India. So, our ancestors have left these kind of paintings in caves in India. Now, I know that you're going to see the similarity that I saw when I looked at these cave paintings, but let's have a closer look at these ones first, because what we're looking at here are scenes from the Ajanta cave murals in India, and according to archaeologists, they think it was actually painted between the 2nd century BCE and the 6th century CE. Personally, I think all of our history is much, much older, but, let's go along with the, 2000 or so years ago that they are claiming. I think it's much older. And these paintings are inside these rock-cut monastic temples that once formed part of a vibrant Buddhist spiritual center. And family, until I started doing the research, I'd seen some Black Buddhas, of course, but I hadn't really actually got the full picture and the full story of the significance of these Buddhas in our Asian history. Because the significance of the Buddhas in our Asian history spans thousands of years of great craftsmanship and artistry of our ancestors, and we've got to claim that history back. Now, again, when we go to India, we're going to see that these Buddhists, they weren't just simple decorations in these temples, but they were telling a story. And this story was carved into the temples. It was in the paintings. It was almost as though the rocks were alive with the story of our history, just like, in the tombs of Egypt, the visual art tells stories. And, there are Egyptologists, most of whom don't look like us, who have spent centuries studying our stories and telling our stories from their perspective. Anyway, we focus a lot on Africa, and so we should, because, you know, Africa is our homeland and our origin. But as I'm showing you over these episodes, we migrated and traveled the whole globe, and we've left evidence of our presence around the globe as well. So here we have these very richly adorned figures. We can see these beautiful dark pigmented women with their layered jewelry, their hairs beautifully styled. You know, that one on my left looks like it's plaited down and twisted up. You can see on the image on the right where the woman is wearing a beautiful headdress. You know, we can see them in their jewelry and their beautiful finery. And, you know, they just look so sophisticated. You can see that a lot of time has been spent beautifying themselves, refining their looks and their image and everything. Look at their headdresses, the jewelry. You know, they would have spent a lot of time adorning themselves. So family, what is that picture telling us? What is that picture saying to us about what the woman, how our women, you know, looks after themselves? And what is, you know, the spiritual connection here as well? You know, and the artist, look at the work of art that's gone into these figures. You know, the artist was communicating a message about these individuals, and they were projecting them as beautiful, as ones who were delicately adorned and wore beautiful cosmetics and jewelry. And so there would have been, you know, jewelry makers and designers who would have created all of those pieces. You know, they're wearing makeup, look at their eyes and their lips. And so if we think jewelry and makeup and adorning ourselves as women and plaiting our hair and wearing these wonderful head wraps just start the other day, we better think again. And men, if dressing up like this take time, you know. So those of you who sometimes complain and say we take time to get ready, we have nothing to do. Because look how we supposed to look, you know. This is the message that these beautiful queens here are communicating to us. And so, you know, the artists, we don't know who they are, but look at the work that they've done to capture, you know, the appearance and the presence of these richly melanated, beautiful sisterings who I think, you know, they were looking at and painting during ancient times. So, you know, we're looking at the appearance of some of our ancients. And, you know, if we expand, you know, this scene a bit more, we can see that, you know, there's other females who are looking up, you know, at those females who have been adorned, and we can see that there's the interaction between the females as well. Some of them are like they're adjusting each other's ornaments, they're, you know, leaning towards one another, they're talking, their attendants are there and they're being assisted, you know. And so this portrait's communicating a lot to us, and it's a window into the ancient world. It's a window from our time into the time of our ancestors, you know. And so the murals are kind of like giving us a bit of an insight into the way of the life of the courts during those time, maybe the social hierarchy. And remember what the social hierarchy do, the locals imitate as well. They wear jewelry, the locals, you know, will save and buy jewelry. They do their hair looking fantastic, and so will the locals, you know, they imitate the social hierarchy. And it's also communicating to us the value that was placed on how a woman looks during those times, thousands of years ago. We're not talking, you know, I remember when my family come to England in the early 60s, them said, the indigenous people who we find here, who are not the indigenous, but the white people that we find here, you know, them never know how to wash and bathe. Them just used to bathe once a week, and they had the one sink in the kitchen and that them used to use. And so look at what we're coming from, and look at what our people found when they came to Britain. You know, the place was so nasty and dirty, they have to clean it up. But this is clearly showing us that, you know, presentation mattered. Your image as a woman mattered. Being elegant, you know, was some, and dressing was a ritual procedure that we would undertake on a daily basis. Yeah. And for us, cleanliness was next to godliness, which is something that we've taught in the Caribbean until today. Why, you know, the Caribbean, anyway, you got clean. Everybody had clean them house, clean them yard, front, back, everywhere, because cleanliness is next to godliness. And this is a godly, beautiful image, you know, that's being portrayed here right now, I think. What do you think? You know? And so this is a window into the ancient world, and it's shown to us that, you know, in the Ajanta Indian cave, it's showing us, you know, that this ancient civilization flourished in the Asian region on the Asian trade routes back in the days. There would have been trade happening, there would have been monks, there would have been merchants, there would have been people traveling freely across borders, there would have been pilgrimages, there were the paintings, there were the art. You know, all of this art is basically a living record and a living testimony that connects us to the ancient world. And our ancients, fortunately, because of the artists that existed during those times, have left us with a living record of this human story. It gives us the identity as well of some of the people in that region, their spiritual imagination, and an insight as to what the civilization must have looked like, because you can't be painting all of that jewelry and the headgear and the materials and the hairstyles. You know, we think hairdressers just come the other day, butcher shop just, well, not butcher, barber shop just come the other day, you know, and seamstresses and tailors and people making material. We've been doing this, and we've been making jewelry, obviously, for thousands of years. Powerful message has been left behind in this work of art, and as we've seen before, in the stone relics as well. So, you know, let's cross over from the Ajanta Indian cave and jump into the one of the Egyptian tombs to see the work of art there that I think we are more familiar with. And here in Egypt, yes, I'm sure it came to mind when you was looking at the Ajanta cave, as it came to my mind. We see, you know, our Egyptian ladies, our ancestors, who were indeed African on the African continent, even though the Arabs are trying to claim them as their own through the Elizabeth Taylor films and the like. You know, again, we see our beautiful, wonderful, skillful artists giving us a window into the past, you know, giving our ancestors a voice to us today through their carving, you know, speaking to us about how women adorned themselves back in the day, how we preserved our culture, how we identified ourselves, you know, the woman's place in society, how maybe women looked in society in those times. Remember, we have been stripped as a people of our former greatness. And we were stripped naked, literally stripped naked. Yeah, stripped of our jewels, our finer clothes. You know, our hair was shaved. We weren't allowed to braid our hairs. Look at those braided hairstyles, family. Look at the looks of those ancestors. So when you see us wearing our braids and our jewelry and our fine clothes, this isn't something that we started yesterday. This is a style that we've inherited from our ancestors that goes back thousands of years, and we can see that through the images. And we can see how our culture has been preserved through to today. And we can see how the women have carried the culture of the braids, the hairstyling, the jewelry, how we adorn ourselves, the dancing in the paintings of the tombs, we can see how that tradition is still with us today. So, from a scene in the Ajanta Indian cave paintings to a scene in the Egyptian temple tombs, again, we can see the cultural similarities, the cultural language that's speaking to us between the women. We see how the Ajanta painted their women, how those women adorn themselves with jewelry and braided hairstyles. And we have seen that also in the tombs of Egypt among the African women there as well. Their braided hairstyle, their cosmetics, their fine jewelry, their garments, their head wraps, their headwear goes back thousands of years. So when you see the beautiful Africans around West Africa wearing their elaborate head wraps and their beautiful braided hairstyle, family, this is culture that goes back thousands of years. And so, we thank the artists during those times for capturing these scenes of beauty to remind us, that we, our women, those of ancient times and those of today, and how we of today have maintained the culture that we inherited from ancient times. So beautification is something that goes back to ancient times. So, I think sometimes us as women, we get too much cussing, because of, the time maybe that we spend doing a bit of beautification, when we wear our fine jewelry and our fine materials. We can see that this symbolized beauty, and it goes back thousands of years. And it was also associated with probably with status, with high society, with fineness, and also importantly, with spiritual harmony. Cleanliness was next to godliness. We had to prepare ourselves, to go into the presence of God. And who were the gods? Our gods were in our image and in our likeness. And if our gods looked like our men, we had to prepare ourselves, yeah? And I'm sure the Egyptians actually believed as well that presenting themselves beautifully was also tied to, social order, dignity. It was a sacred principle, because we can see in these tombs the sacredity, of the rituals. We can see the principles of ma'at, balance and order, living right, bowing before, the powers that be. This was our lifestyle. We can see that in the caves paintings in India, and we can also see in the cave paintings in Egypt as well. Powerful images, powerfully documenting the shared traditions that the women had in ancient times, from Egypt to India. So let's honor womanhood, let's honor our identity, let's honor our culture, and, let's embrace our culture. Let's stop writing off, our beautification processes and traditions, and, let's embrace our identity and our rituals and remain balanced as women, so that we're able to give our best to our men. And then our men in return, value your women as well. And the trouble that we go to look good for you after all. Yeah. And, so this isn't just art, it's reflecting in stone and in color, our identity, our lifestyle, a peep into how we adorned ourselves as women. It's like you're looking into our bedrooms almost, to see Wagwan, and us getting ready, really. And we're allowing you, our ancestors have allowed us to see all of this because, you know, they wanted to leave us with this message as women about who we are and how we should value ourselves, how we should value our identity and enjoy adorning ourselves as well. So rise up to our ancestors for that. Oh my goodness, I can't believe the time. A 5 to 10, it couldn't be. 21:54. And I've got so much more to get through. Let's just do one more slide. And so again, this next slide is going to be making the link between India and Africa. Here in this image, we can definitely see the African-Indian connection hidden in plain sight. Look at the similarities that can be observed between how the Africans dress, this is the Yoruba kind of traditional dress, and the Indian cultural fashion and traditional dress. You can see, you know, the African robes, very much in what the Indians call the sari. And you can see from the African family sitting there with the Yoruba, you know, scarves over their shoulder, looking very much like the traditional Indian fashion as well. And let me just quote a little bit from chapter 15 in a book called The Civilization of India. Even the name Hindu is Ethiopian. Ancient records of authority made Hind and Sind sons of Kush. Philostratus in Vit Apollyon, Lib 2, says, the Indi are the wisest of mankind. The Ethiopians are a colony of them, and they inherit the wisdom of their fathers. The separation of India from the parent Kushite stock was in ages long before the rise of the so-called Aryans in India. The older Greeks always associated the sacred waves of the Indian Sea with the wonderful Ethiopians. Euphorus stated that they occupied all the southern coasts of Asia and Africa. As in Chaldea, they brought to the Aboriginal tribes of India the knowledge of metals to take the place of stone implements. They brought the knowledge of the arts. Their funeral remains all over India reveal the stone circles and upright massive menhirs of North Africa. They understood in those far distant ages how to make hard earthenware, iron weapons, and ornaments of gold. Today, in a state of degraded art, Sind is the only province where the potter's craft is artistic. Wow, that's the extent of our destruction, family. That, you know, today they're saying it's only in one region in India where the potters have managed to maintain their craft. But can you consider we used to be the experts of earthenware, ironware, iron weapons, ornaments of gold. We used to make, it wasn't Dubai, Africa, the rest of Africa was the Dubai in gold making. We have been stripped of all of that. But, you know, in this text here, we're reading about, you know, the ancient Africans that sailed the seas to India and how at one time it was perceived as part of Ethiopia. There's so much more to go through, family. I'm glad I didn't rush it because I hope that you've managed to get something out of today's presentation. My apologies that the time has whizzed by so quickly without me realizing, but I can say to you, family, there is so much more of this presentation. I haven't even got into a quarter of it. So we're going to continue with it next strong in episode 5. So I certainly hope that you will join me. To everyone in the chat, thank you so much for joining me. Dora Fails in the house. The hen had to be first before the rooster. Rise up. Karen saying, somebody copied. What's that? Like and share this page, says Karen. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you so much, Sheriff. As you said, it was wonderful. I hope you all enjoyed the presentation. I hope you're going to take something new from it today. Kwame's in the house as well. Look at the Ashantis, especially the Ashanti door. I have a special episode on the Ashantis and the symbolism that they left behind from ancient time, Brother Kwame. You're going to love that session. He says, look at the Ashantis, especially the Ashanti adorning gold chair, gold shoes, gold ornaments, especially during cultural avatar. Yeah, for real, beloved. And I can see all of that in the Egyptian, Asian culture and Indian culture as well. Wow, wow, wow. Karen says, we have always had our hair adorned. Yes. Sister Alfred Jarrah saying, fire. And for those of you who haven't got my book, please do support and get my book, Hidden in the Shadows of Ancient Britain, an Erased African History Restored. To everyone who's been following this new series, thank you so, so much. I look forward to continuing the presentation with you next strong. Just to let you know, my ancestors wake me up at about 3 o'clock every morning to do this work, 3 a.m. they wake me up, okay? The other day I never wake up, one pot drop off of the counter to wake me up. When I look at the time, it was 3:33. All the threes, I said, it's my ancestors. I've got to get up and do the research. So I'm doing it for you, family. Please share so that everyone can get the knowledge of our greatness, because if we have pride in ourselves as Africans, we will rise again like the phoenix from the ashes. Take care, family. More love, more strength. Sister Shanice out of here for now. Bye for now.